Thank you, and thanks ever so much for coming. Thank you, it's lovely to be here. So I will read some poems, talk a little bit about what that's got to do with the arts, and I'll begin with me out with some children by the River Thames, and we're just going along, and we're underneath one of the bridges that takes trains over. It's called Hungerford Bridge. Maybe you know it, it's just by the River Thames, and you'll know that there's a law of nature that if you put 30 children under a railway bridge and a train goes over, they all go, ah! You'll know that. It's a law of nature. It's in the Bible, I think. And I have two little teachers inside my head. One of them's my mum and the other one's my dad. And when 30 children are screaming for longer than about 10 minutes, a little sort of teachery thing clicks in, which says, maybe we could think of something else to do other than scream. You'll be familiar with that, some of you, I think. And so I said, look, you can not only see and hear the train, you can also feel it. Look. And then I went over and I put my hand where the bridge is, put my hands there, and I said, look, when the train comes, you'll be able to feel it. So we all stood there, 30 plus one, well, and the teachers and the parents. And so there we were. And sure enough, you could feel the train. I say, it's wonderful. And as I was standing there, sort of little thought came into my mind that actually standing going, if you put your hands on the bridge, you can feel the train. That something like that could begin a poem. You'll hear all sorts of things about how poets write poems, a lot of it to do with what's called inspiration, and that's fine, but a lot of what we do is actually much more ordinary than that. We're actually collectors, we're magpies. We go about and just grab stuff that can begin things, yeah? So that's what quite a lot of us do, and we not only grab the stuff we see, like where it says fire exit there, or it says BETT there, or it says HEFE theatre there. We grab the stuff around us, but we also grab the things we hear people saying, the things that people are doing, and even the things that we say. So we're magpies of what we ourselves say. So we're still standing there, by the way. And I heard myself say something like, hand on the bridge, feel the rhythm of the train. And when I said that, you see, it's going round and round in my head. And then I think maybe I could make up a poem that begins like that on the way home. And as I'm going along, I'm also thinking of something that Benjamin Zephaniah once said to me when I said to him, where do you write your poems? And he said, I don't write them, I make them up in my head when I go jogging. And then I know the poem when I get to the end of the jog, so I don't have to learn it. And then he also said that when I perform it, because I've made it up in my head, it's in a shape that is easy for people to learn. So what we're going to do in a minute is do the Benjamin Zephaniah challenge. I'm going to do the poem that I made up in my head, and then you're going to do it back to me. And you're not worried about that at all. I can see your faces. You're going, hell, not me, no. You'll see. And we're going to do it according to the principles of what you might call kinetic performance, where we attach the words to our bodies. I'll come back to that. Here we go. So the poem bit went, hands on the bridge, feel the rhythm of the train. Hands on the window, feel the rhythm of the rain. Hands on your throat, feel the rhythm of your talk. Hands on your leg, feel the rhythm of your walk. Hands in the sea, feel the rhythm of the tide. Hands on your heart, feel the rhythm inside. Hands on the rhythm, feel the rhythm of the rhyme. Hands on your life, feel the rhythm of time. What? Hands on your life, feel the rhythm of time. Again, hands on your life, feel the rhythm of time. So you're ready for that now, aren't you? I can see you're all looking smiley and so on. So let's just remember the movements, because that helps us attach the words to the movement to the words, and that also helps us remember it. Here we go. I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll help you. 1, 2, 3. Hands on the bridge, feel the rhythm. Some of you are looking nervous, you'd forgotten the first line. Hands on the bridge, feel the rhythm of the track. You're there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hands on the bridge, feel the rhythm of the train. Window, hands on the window, feel the rhythm of the rain. Throat, hands on your throat, feel the rhythm of your talk. Leg, hands on your leg, feel the rhythm of your walk. Sea, hands in the sea, feel the rhythm of the tide. Hands on your heart, feel the rhythm inside. Rhythm, hands on the rhythm, feel the rhythm of the rhyme. Hands on your life, feel the rhythm of time. What? Hands on your life, feel the rhythm of time. Again, hands on your life, feel the rhythm of time. Lovely, you clap yourselves for that, that's brilliant. When we invented writing, that was brilliant. I mean, I didn't personally, it was 3,000 years ago, maybe more than that, 3,000, nearly 4,000 years ago. We invented writing, which is great for storing things, and that's why we do it. Memories, facts, stories, poems, and all the rest of it. But one snag was it separated the word from the body. The great thing about poems and performance is it reattaches the words to the body. So just as we walk about and talk, when you do poetry, you write it down, it's in books, but then you lift it off the page and you reattach the words to the body. When you think of children, when they come into our schools, age 5 and 6, 4, 5, 6, they're living in a world, an oral world, in which words are attached to their bodies, and then we detach when we teach them how to read, as we should, and it's very difficult. So one of the things that poetry does, as one of the arts, is reattach words to the body. I can't stress that more than I'm stressing it now, and you've just displayed it because you just showed me you could actually perform a whole poem that's written down partly because we attached it to the sounds and the moves of what we did. Well done again. Clap yourselves again for attaching. Lovely. But how did I make that poem, and what is it? Why is it to do with the arts? It's because the fundamental thing about the arts is they transform stuff. Yes? So you remember there was a train, there was a bridge, there was rhythm, and then some words came into my mind to do with putting your hands on the bridge, and then I transformed that to make a piece. Art just means made. Ars artis in Latin, that's what it meant, something that is made. So that's at the core of the arts, is you take something, a thing, an idea, whatever it is, and you turn it into something else. That's the thing about the arts. That's why they're magical. It's why I'm going to claim they're so important. And what they teach you, always, whether you hear them, see them, do the actual making, is it teaches you possibility, right? Possibility and potential. We always talk in schools about realizing children's potential. Well, in actual fact, one of the great things about doing the arts is that you feel your potential. When I sat there and went hands on the bridge, and I sat on the tube on the way home, I was actually feeling my potential. Can I do this thing? What will I rhyme bridge on the train? What will I rhyme train with? Have I got the resources in my head to find a rhyme for train? Yes, I have. I've got rain. Shall I repeat the line? Hands on the bridge, hands on the... Well, where'd you find rain? Puddles? Window. That's where you'd feel the rain. So what I'm doing when I'm doing that is finding out the possibilities and finding out this key word, the potential. And in so doing, I don't treat the world as a given. I don't treat the world that this is just there and there's nothing I can do with it. I treat the world as something that I can change. So in actual fact, part of that thing about potential, the key word is the change. So I say possibility, potential, and change, that I have the power to change. Now, the moment I learn that, whether I'm making a pot or doing a painting or doing a dance, I learn that I have the possibility and the potential to change something. It may be the shape of my body, it may be some clay, it may be some paint. So I learn that about myself, that I have the possibility to change, the potential to change, but I also learn that about the world, that the world doesn't have to be something that you just take as it is. I think that's incredibly empowering to give to children. The fact that the arts are being squashed in the curriculum is a matter of great sadness, if not anger for me. That's this key aspect of the possibility, potential, and change, that children are being deprived of it or not getting enough of it, and that we as teachers or educators, whoever we are, this isn't a crucial and central part of our work, that's what we should be doing, is enabling children to find these kinds of potential in themselves, and they are not in the situation of simply being the receivers of facts, the cultural transmission that you're supposed to be doing, the knowledge-rich curriculum that you're supposed to be doing, and all that. But this other stuff is about change and the possibility of change. But then there was something else, wasn't there? I performed that poem, and then you did it, and there's all of us here, and we're all strangers, and we don't know who we are. There looks about like 200 of you, maybe not as many, 150. And so what did? We shared it, we performed it, and we actually helped each other do it. So the arts always have that potential of sharing and cooperation. I'm not saying you don't get that with other things. Of course you do. You get it with sport, you get it with play, you get it with all sorts of other things. By and large, you don't get it with the knowledge-rich curriculum, as it happens, because you're supposed to pile up the knowledge for yourself so that you can be tested in it. Yes, we know that. But in actual fact, when we do the arts, there is always the potential to share, that we can, if you want to reduce it to this, to perform or publish it. In other words, to take it out there, or indeed sometimes to make it together if you're singing in a choir, or if you're making a play, or if indeed you're doing a big mural or a frieze or something like that. Or, as I just did then, I performed a poem and you performed it back for me. So we have that other element that is crucial, cooperation and sharing. It's a form of togetherness, and we need that. We need the togetherness. So what have we got? We've got possibility, we've got potential, we have change, and we also have the possibility of creating togetherness through the arts. Okay, but I just did a little poem there that has one aspect of it, one aspect of what we can do. But what if we think about ourselves and our place in the world? Now, our place in the world, how do we find out about that? Who we are, where we come from. Some people call it family history, who do you think you are, and all the rest of it. There's a real issue in schools about whether children have the chance and the time and the space within education to contemplate who they are and where they come from. My own view is that I wish the subject, family history, was actually a subject in schools. It wouldn't have to be there for the whole of the, however many years you're at school, 11 years or wherever, 12 years. Not necessarily, but I certainly think that it should be built in, and of course I know plenty of teachers do it and find a space for it. When we do family history, it enables us to contemplate who we are, where we came from. We can explore our family heritage and go back as far as is possible. We can talk to our parents, find out who we are. Now, some people think that's a very factual thing, and it can be. But you can also do it, you can contemplate it in an artistic way, because you can ask questions, say through poetry, you can ask questions of people who you've never met. If, let's say, your grandparents tell you that they came from another country, or that their parents lived in another country, and you can't see them, and you find out things, and people tell you stories, and you write those stories down. And now go back to my word that I used earlier, transform. How can you transform that in an artistic way? And one of the ways is to ask questions of the relatives who've gone, the people who aren't there anymore. And I want to tell you a very quick little story. I've just done a book called The Missing, and it's about my relatives who went missing during the Second World War. And I did lots and lots of research, believe it or not, over 30 years. And across that time, I found out, tragically, that my father's uncle and aunt were seized in the city of Nice in France, taken to Paris and sent to Auschwitz because they're Jews. And I found this out, and I investigated it, and I found lists of names, I found maps, I did all that kind of research. But at the end of the day, it didn't deal with my feelings. And that's what the arts do. They enable you to deal with your feelings. As more and more as I came to the horror of finding out what had happened, I knew I wasn't writing that down. But a poem or a picture or a mural or indeed a dance or a drama, which is going to happen, by the way, tomorrow in Cambridge for Holocaust Memorial Day, that a group have done a dance drama based on this story. But I needed to make a poem. And one of the things you can do in a poem, which you can't do in a story, is ask questions that you don't have to answer. This is one of the great things about the arts, is it can ask questions and you don't have to resolve it completely. So I found out tragically that my aunt and uncle, Oscar and Rachel, were taken at the very moment they were just about to be freed by somebody who had got some boats to take them to Africa. So they're in Nice, you know that's in the south of France. He had found these boats, and what he was going to do was to take the Jews who were in various places around Nice, waiting to be released and to go to North Africa. But instead, as it happens, we, the Allies, defeated Italy, and the next thing that happened was the Nazis moved into Nice, and I'm afraid arrested my uncle and aunt in a hotel and took them to and sent them to Auschwitz. So I wrote a poem that is a set of questions that I think, and I would hope that indeed any of our children or students could use that as a shape, because sometimes in the arts you want to use the shapes that other people give us. So it's called Imitate and Invent, or in the words of Pi Corbett, he uses the word innovate. So you can imitate and innovate, imitate and invent. You take a shape and use it. Here's how my poem goes. Dear Oscar, what did you think as you and Rachel sat on the floor of the cattle truck as it left Paris? Did you think of the watches and clocks you had mended? He was a clock mender. Did you think of the watches and clocks you had mended? Did you think of the tiny springs and wheels? You with your magnifying glass in your eye, poring over the works so that a monsieur or a madame could tell the time correct to the exact second? Did you look through the gaps in the slats on the side of the truck? Did you see farmers in fields, women selling clothes in a market? Did you call out? Did you push your hands through the gaps? Did the night come creeping in? Did you see a light from a window where people sat and ate their evening meal? Did you see in the dark horror on Rachel's face? Did she see horror on yours? Did you shut her eyes? Did she shut yours? Thinking of children who shut their eyes to make the world go away? And then behind your eyelids, did you think of the cattle that had once stood in the truck as they were taken away to the slaughterhouse? So what I did there was I wanted to deal with my feelings that I felt so bereft that what had happened to them, that it was so nearly saved, but they weren't. And so we know we have children who have feelings of bereavement, of sadness, of hopelessness. And one of the simplest things that you can give them is if you like, the chance or the opportunity to write questions. They don't have to make statements. Sometimes when we ask children to say stuff, it's almost too much. It's almost too much of a burden. We can just enable them to ask questions. And the great thing about the arts, but particularly poetry, is you can just leave it hanging in the air. It doesn't have to go any further than what I just did there. So I'll just finish now with something else that the arts can do, which is play. The great thing about the arts is they are actually mostly a form of play. And in my case, that's playing with words. So I often look at words, not because of their meaning, but because of how they sound. So this is the physical aspect of words, and you can do this. This is the whole history of nonsense poetry and many other forms of like scat singing that you get with jazz. A lot of it is to do with the fact that we find amusing the shape and sound of the words and the odd meanings that come from them. It's in the nursery rhymes, hey diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle. You may have noticed cats don't play the fiddle. It's not something they usually do, but it rhymes with that hey diddle diddle. The cow jumped over the moon, do they? No, not usually. So we know that that's there in the play. So I noticed that the word ticket and the word sticker are just a little bit similar. So he had a little ticket and he had a little sticker, and he took the little sticker and he stuck it to the ticket. Now he hasn't got a sticker and he hasn't got a ticket. He's got a bit of both, which he calls a little sticket. You're going to say that. He had a little ticket and he had a little sticker, and he took the little sticker and he stuck it to the ticket. Now he hasn't got a ticket and he hasn't got a sticker. He's got a bit of both, which he calls a little... Okay, so we'll call it out. He had a little ticket, we'll have it. Shall we try that? He had a little... And he had a little, and he took the little, well, let's keep it in the same order, shall we? There we are, it's quite easy to remember, we'll try again. He had a little, and he had a little, and he took the little, And he stuck it to the... Now, he hasn't got a... And he hasn't got a... He's got a bit of both, which he calls a little... You're good on that bit. Lovely. So, this may sound very pompous. It's a little game. It's little fun. But in actual fact, what it explores are those funny little sounds that we make with our tongues and our teeth, sometimes called plosives, and it explores the tickety sound and the stickety sound and so on, and how they overlap. And when you do that, the words release new meanings. So that's another thing that the arts do, that you transform something you find and you release new meanings. And that's very exciting for children to discover. As I said, the world isn't as it's made, but you can make it release new meanings. Very posh word for it, defamiliarization. But anyway, you don't have to have that if you don't want to, but if you want to, please borrow it. It's the core of the arts. They defamiliarize, they make less familiar what's familiar. So they take it and create new meanings. So that's something else the arts do. Again, very exciting for us in education. If we have time, I'm going to stop now. And if any of you got any questions, please do fire them at me. I'm ready for you. Anything at all.
I believe we're going to start with one from the app.
Right, Anonymous says.
And then we'll do one from the floor.
Yeah, how many lessons should be dedicated to arts per week? Oh, well, I would say we should do something to do with the arts every day. I would, wouldn't I? That's something. You've got the whole range of the arts. It's not, I mean, I'm going on about poetry because that's my thing. But I mean, I think, yes, that there should be time if you just want to number the arts for yourselves, whether it's dance or ceramics or painting, singing, poetry, writing stories, whatever, that we should think in our head that the arts is a crucial and central part, and ideally sometime every day, because it's through that we discover these new meanings and new things to do with the materials around us. And when I say the arts, I do always include the crafts. I mean, taking bits of metal and sticking them together to see what shapes they make. Yes. Or yeah.
Or should we have one? Do you want to do one from there or one from the floor, Michael?
Let's do one from the floor. Let's be live. Yes.
Gentlemen.
Thank you, Michael. I was going to ask, how can arts save the world?
I would say that they're one of the ways in which we save the world, because we need new meanings in order to cope with the new world that is being created and around us. Obviously, we have many dramas, many problems that we're facing. Obviously, people are talking about climate change. We can't solve things unless you have a creative and playful, in the full sense of the word, way of doing it. And the arts is one of the ways in which we do it. We re-express what we see. So when we say climate change, you know, and we see pictures on the telly, and we have children in our schools, what are they to make of it? We could say turn the tap off, or we could say, you know, we shouldn't run, I don't know, shouldn't have the oven on too much or something like that. But how do we understand this whole thing of the earth in the universe? So we need the arts as well as the sciences to explain this to us, because science without feeling is actually disaster. Because if science has no social responsibility, if science is not attached to us as people, as living human beings, then science on its own, without that, always leads to disaster. We know that from some of the events that I was describing earlier. So we have to bill in, we have to fit in the human of us into whatever projects that we come up with. So I would say the arts are an essential part of it, but they can't do it on their own. Arts have to help science, science has to help art and industry and the rest of it, but it has to be there. If we neglect the humanity of us in any project that we have, it will lead to disaster. Thank you. Can you give advice to parents on teaching children to recognize the importance of art even before they attend school? I would have thought the ones who, before they attend school, they're sometimes the easiest to talk to about the arts, because they see their babies. There's a baby over there. You see your baby, and what do? They touch and feel and make things and pull things apart and put them back together again. I think it probably is a good idea to help parents know how important that is. I once watched my baby daughter playing with a ball, and she dropped it, and when it bounced, she laughed. Now, I tend not to do it unless it's Spurs, but anyway, that's another matter. But if a ball drops and bounces and a child discovers it for the first time and it was a surprise, I think she was about 9 months, 10 months old. In its own tiny way, that was the art. She was discovering a material and, oh, I didn't know that a ball would bounce. Oh, look at it. Because maybe she had only rolled a ball before then. I don't know, but she found it funny. But we need to tell people that that's important because the child is discovering the world through play and making something new. So I would only say to the ones before coming to school, it's just to remind parents that the things that the children will do anyway, because we are born as intellectually curious, we are born as curious creatures, most living forms are, but us especially. You just remind parents how important that is because it enables your child to develop their brains and to realize, because we learn, again the theory bit, is we learn our cognition, our early cognition, our means of understanding things through play. We find out what works, we find out what doesn't work. She found out that badoing, the ball bounces. This was a whole crucial bit of science for a 9-month-year-old. How old's yours? 1 month, 3 months. Right, there was some dispute there between the parents. Yeah, it's 1 month, 3 months. Who's arguing? Who's counting? Sorry, only kidding. Anyway, you see, when she first bounces a ball, you'll see the delight and amazement. Oh, my word, it's gravity. Oh, blimey, it defies gravity. It bounces back up again. Cognition through play, through the arts.
We actually had a question about STEM subjects, and I think you answered that.
Right,
brilliantly.
children.
Can we take one very quick question?
Yes,
from
please
the floor?
do. Yeah.
Yes. Correct.
Hello. I'd like to ask what you would do to support children when they want to give up on the arts, and how you help them to have good resilience in their learning.
When children give up, when they're what? In the arts or anyway? In the arts. Well, the crucial thing when you're with the arts is to keep the spirit of play going. If it becomes a duty and a burden, the chances are many children will fall off. They'll fall off the horse at that point, because what would be the point? People like me who've spent our life in the arts, yeah, we do push ourselves. We go, I haven't finished by midnight, never mind, I'll carry on till 3 in the morning. Yeah, we do it, but we learn that because we know it'll be better if we carry on. Or there's a chance it will be, but the children, particularly the young ones, they don't know that. So they've got to discover the pleasure in finishing something. So the other thing you have to think of is that thing I said about publishing and performing, that when you connect whatever you make and do in the arts, reconnect it with the audience so that the arts have a purpose. Obviously, some of us, we sit there and think, oh, I'll write a little poem just for myself, but that's later. That maybe comes, 8, 9, 10-year-olds maybe start discovering that you can write stuff in your diary or in your journal, and that's lovely, and you close the journal and look at it tomorrow. But for the little ones in particular, you've got to show them the fun of sharing, whether that's the class, your family group, whether you use the school bulletin to share things, whether you make little booklets all the time, whether you make little films and PowerPoints that the children can then share. It's very, very easy. My kids make films on their phone. What? My son came up to me and he said, look at this, Dad. And he had shot a whole sequence of things to do with the holiday. I didn't know, very embarrassing, some of it. Stuck it together with the tune, cutting it to the tune. He'd done it all on his phone. I thought, blimey. I once lived with a guy who was a film editor, and he had this whacking great big thing called a Steenbeck that used to wake me up every morning. It cost him about 10 grand. And now you just go, got film, Dad. Have you? Wonderful. So you show them that some of it can be very, very immediate, but the reward was me going, what? When did you make that? Oh, I just did it in bed, Dad. It's just, it just done it. So you want to give them, the reward is not in dosh or just saying it's brilliant. The reward is in sharing. And then I think they start to see the virtues of it. One guy told me that he had real trouble with a group of Year 6 boys, couldn't write, wouldn't write, weren't interested at all. He had actually come from the IT world, and he said, well, let's create a blog, right? And then he said, what would you like the blog to be? And the guy said, horror stories. And they said, all right. He said, who's going to write them? He said, we are. So suddenly, these boys who didn't want to write, weren't going to write, were now not competing with each other as such, but saying who could write the worst horror story. And so that's what they did. They wrote horror stories, and he couldn't stop them in the end. And they were writing and writing and writing. And various things you can do with blogs in schools. You can either just keep it to one group of 4 people. You can do it for 20. You can do it for the whole school. You can moderate it in any way you want, or you can make it completely public, or you can do what's called quad blogging. So if you want to take that down, quad blogging is a little, they may be here actually, a little group who enable schools in 4s to communicate to each other all around the world the stuff they write, their poems, their stories, their recounts, their sports write-ups or whatever, with schools all over the world. So again, there's a value in it because you say, I've got a poem, and there's someone in Indonesia going, so have I, and sharing it. And quad blogging is a wonderful way to do that. So I would say make the rewards be in what's called the reception. In other words, in performing and in publishing in the broad sense of the word. I think I have to stop, don't I, Freddie? Yeah. So thanks ever so much for coming. If you want to come and meet me, I am, exactly as Sarah said, I am on EDE 54. I am on. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming and listening. Thank you.